Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fifth alumni meeting. First of all, I'm sorry for this delay because the streams were shut down because of the music that we chose, but actually you use royalty-free music. This means that we will not be able to play some music during the breaks. I'm sorry about that. Well, it's a pity that you cannot join me here in the lab, and this year you cannot really come to visit university. But despite we not being close together, we can still meet here. And we wanted to keep the tradition of inviting you to see what we've been doing. So I'm going to tell you some news about the lab and what we've been doing in technical and games. And as usual, we also invite you to share your own experience and feel free to ask any questions. So please type and interrupt if needed. This also actually raises a new opportunity because we can reach the whole globe. So we can actually meet even if we are far away. And this year we're going to have one of the speakers that is literally talking from the other part of the world. Okay, so everything started quite naturally in the year in early 2020, and we did participate in the Global Game Jam as usual. It was an awesome participation. We had several teams. We joined people here from technical and other universities. And you can see part of the results in the, I think you saw part of that in the Facebook. Things changed, as you know, quite early because of the Corona break. But we kept doing our activity as much as possible. So the talk and play is a good example. So we keep meeting together, this time online. So we stream several sessions, some of them actually quite long. And people were sharing the games they like, discuss why they like it. So it's quite lively discussion as we want. And we keep this kind of activities that we share some of the issues and things that we like in games and dislike. And this is something we want to continue. Something that was quite different was the games, the display of the games that we have usually in the exhibition, Montra de Jogos, in the end of May. So this time was impossible. What we did was a live stream, but we gained also something because we put all the games into a website, and you can actually check this site and you can play the games. We also encourage people to put the games in itch.io, and this is something we probably will continue to do. So even if we can do, and I hope we can do, the Montra de Jogos in situ, so with people touching the games, playing and chatting and have fun together. We probably still keep sharing the games in itch.io and prepare a link for you, especially if you cannot join Montra de Jogos, so you can try and comment on the games. There's something different this year as well, because we continue the collaboration with other, with people from other areas, other domains. We have a long, successful collaboration with Belas Artes, Escola de Belas Artes. So we have students from design and mostly graphical design joining the groups that develop the games here at Technical. And this year we had some students from Escola Superior de Comunicação Social, and they were writing stuff for the game. So there's a course there on writing for games, and we started a collaboration with the professor there, and this is something we are going to continue this year. So we expanded a bit the heterogeneity and of the teams that we try to create around game development here. And we continue the experience with people from management to work more on the business model of the games that are developed. Something completely new that we're doing this year is we've started to do some services of workshops of game design. One in particular came from the collaboration with the Oeiras municipality that we started this year. And we are going to deliver several design workshops in schools. We plan to do around 8, 9, or 10 once a month. We'll see. And even in other situations like festivals or for youth gatherings. So this is something we are going to promote a lot starting this year. And I would like also to congratulate the group, the Game Dev Techno. It's now formally a strong group here. They are growing, and you can follow them in the Twitter. And you can send an email if you want to join or check what they are doing. And they are mostly students that are also involved here with the Games Lab activities. But this is dedicated mostly to game development. They have their own projects, actually developing some cool stuff at the moment. I would like to show you a brief show reel of the games that were developed in the courses this year. Let's see if this flows well. Okay, so now it's the main part of the event. We are really happy to have these three great speakers. The first one, João Oliveira, he was around here to 12, 13. He soon joined Ubisoft, first in Sofia in Bulgaria, but he moved 1 year ago, I think, to Singapore. So he has lots of experience programming there. He's now lead gameplay programmer, and he works in titles related to the Assassin's Creed. Then we're going to have Diana Pingisha. So she worked on the High Skills, which is a serious game developer company. I know she's a writer as well, so she might talk about this. She's about to publish a book. She was here with us in 13, 14. And Andres Soares is a bit new guy. So he was here just 3 years ago, and he started as a gameplay programmer in Back Rose Hearts, and he's going to also talk about his experience as a newcomer to the industry. So the rest of the event will be these 3 talks, half an hour each, with time for you to put your own questions, and please engage, and they will have interesting experience to share. And then we're going to have a panel after this, after a small break. So in a few minutes or seconds, we're going to have João with us. So keep.
Hi everyone, I'm João Oliveira, and I just want to start by saying thank you for having me here. Thank you, Professor Rui Prada, for the introduction. And I think this is a really cool initiative from the group. So I'm really proud to be able to participate in it, to tell you my story, and I'm also looking forward to hear what the other participants have to share. So before I start, I just want to introduce myself briefly. Um, I'm 29. I'm currently living in Singapore, and I finished my master's in Technical roughly 6 years ago. And currently, I'm lead gameplay programmer at Ubisoft Singapore. So today, I want to be talking about two things. The first one is what is this that I do? What does a lead gameplay programmer do? And the second one is how I got to this point. So what I do, I assume you guys have general knowledge of what a gameplay programmer does. So I would just like to tell you what I look for in a gameplay programmer that joins my team, what kind of qualities I'm expecting to see, which may or may not be the same in different teams, in different studios. So yeah, I'm a technical programmer, so I like to think of things this way about there's boxes, there's inputs, there's outputs. So if a gameplay programmer is some abstract machine, I like to think of it as a machine that takes as input an idea, which usually comes from a game designer, but can come from anyone, literally, really can come from the gameplay programmer itself, and transforms it into actual gameplay. And the common understanding of this is this means, all right, so this is just writing some code and gameplay happens. And sure enough, you can do that. But what I try to convey to my team is that the role of a gameplay programmer is actually much more than that. So I like them to answer this question. What is the best version of this idea that we can develop with the resources that we have? And sure enough, that does involve code. So this involves questions like, what code do I need to write to make it happen? But also, you better be thinking about other systems. So how does it work with other systems? If you're doing a new running animation, it better work with the existing walking system or whatever. Also, you should consider how much time you have and how much time until the next milestone, the next delivery, the next release, whatever. And then I would like to go a bit deeper than that. You see, gameplay programmers are often the most technical team members in the whole development team. So they are very good candidates to provide the whole technical solution. So what about deciding who else needs to be involved? Do you need animators? Do you need artists? Do you need level designers? And also, are you also thinking about how this idea fulfills the creative and technical direction? And finally, you should also think about how do we iterate on this idea, because the first time you implement this idea, for sure, it's not going to be ready to ship. All right, that's a gameplay programmer. Now, what about a lead gameplay programmer? Starting from the same diagram, I tried to do the same about a lead gameplay programmer, and I found that I wasn't really getting anywhere. And the reason is that a lead gameplay programmer is actually two roles in one. I would say it's the role of tech lead and the role of a manager. In fact, in many studios and in many companies, these roles are given to two different people. That's not the case in Singapore, so I accumulate these two. So for a tech lead, I would say it's not so different from a gameplay programmer. The difference is that you usually take bigger ideas and you fulfill bigger game systems. And for a manager, it's nothing specific to the games industry. You take a group of people and you need to transform them into a team. So if this was the question for a gameplay programmer, the question for a tech lead would be something like, okay, what can we do with this core feature? And core feature can be anything really. An example could be, okay, we're making a combat-driven game. We need to make a really good combat system. And that's up to the tech lead to take that challenge and to break it down into a bunch of smaller little features and to go from there. Another example could be, okay, how do we implement exploration in this game? And finally, as a manager, the question I ask myself is, how can I reach the full potential of the team? And for this one, there's enough to talk for a whole presentation, so I'll not delve too deep there. Okay, so now you know what I do. I'd like to share with you a bit of my journey. And in my case, I have actually a very nice memory from some years ago when I decided to become a game developer. It was during E3 2005. I was staying up until very late with a friend of mine to watch the conferences, which I still do. And maybe E3 2005 doesn't really mean much to you, but it was the year that these consoles were revealed. And back then, the leap in computational power and in graphical fidelity was really really big. So it was, the whole thing was very exciting. I was super looking forward to try these new games, and I remember I was also thinking, hey, there's real potential here. I see the way this is going. I think we are going to be able to tell really deep stories to craft meaningful experiences that have a real impact in the world. And one game I often think about that fulfills that promise a bit more recent is No Man's Sky. Because if you think about it, where else other than a video game can you really experience this feeling of exploring a whole new universe for the first time? And to me, as a creator, that's something really exciting. I mean, I want to create these worlds, and I want to be able to give this to give people the chance to experience something that they would not be able to experience otherwise. And talking about unique experiences, a few years after that E3, I ended up in technical. And sure enough, those years in technical were pretty tough. And I guess you're now going through them, and you're also feeling this. So I want just to give you some piece of motivation. I work with a lot of programmers from many different countries, and still today I am impressed at the preparation that we get right out of technical. It's something that really left me and other colleagues that I've seen since then from technical one step ahead from the get-go. And that's really, really nice. So think about that next time you're desperately trying to deliver a project. And I thought about this a bit, and I tried to distill what was it that made my experience at Technical so different and gave me this advantage. And I think there are two main factors. The first one is that the whole degree, the whole university really focuses on teaching us how to learn. It's not just about finishing the degree. It's not about doing the course. The whole time, the teaching process is very much about you learning by yourself. And sometimes this is super frustrating, but in the end, it provides really good results for the rest of our lives. And the second one is we really have to learn how to deal with impossible deadlines. When you have those 2 exams on Friday and you also have to deliver 3 projects, it's. I remember being in that situation and thinking, why the hell did they do this? This is mean. But now I understand that actually this does happen in work life. So having gone through that and through that stress, I now feel much more ready to take such challenges. I do want to tell you something to look out for. Don't just think of technical as studying, as getting the grades and being done with the degree, because in the end, that's really not the point. I mean, sure, technical prepares you professionally, but if you take full advantage of technical, it prepares you as a person for the future. And this event is a very good example of that. So do go to these events, do go to other events, even if they're from areas you're not so interested in. Go and do an Erasmus semester somewhere. That's a really, really great experience. And you know what? Go to those parties that your friends invite you to. Well, not now during COVID, but you know what I mean. And yeah, the whole thing is really way more fun if you do it surrounded by friends. In my case, having some good friends with similar interests led me to something really nice. Back then, the Laboratório Jogos was just starting, so it was a bit hard to make your own video games and to figure out how to do it. You're very lucky to have that now. Back then, I just joined with a group of friends, and we started making video games together. And we made a few of them. This is my favorite one because it was one that was actually released, and it's nothing groundbreaking, but the point still stands. We learned how to make video games on our own. We had a lot of fun. And what I realized later is this also gave me and will give you, because I see the games you're making, they look really cool. They give you really good advantages when you start looking for a job, because you know the whole process of making video games. So yeah, that's actually a very generic advice, but this is very true. Just keep making video games. Sometimes you'll fail and your video game is not gonna be great, but you'll keep learning. So after that, just keep making some more. Okay. So eventually I finished my master's and I start looking for a job. At the time, there were really few options in Portugal, and I had this idea of working in AAA development. So I knew from the get-go, okay, I want to try apply somewhere else in the world. So what I did was I got a big Excel sheet with all the companies that I could think of. And I started looking in their websites for open entry-level positions. And I applied to more than 80 positions. Of these applications, I got 2 replies, 2 chances to make tests. Everyone else just didn't reply. And this whole process took roughly 4 months. And at this point, I was really, really discouraged. I was ready to give up. And there was something on my mind, a question on my mind that was really dragging me down, which was, hey, why would anyone hire you for an entry-level position abroad when they have dozens of local applicants? And years later, as a recruiter, I can see this still happening. If I look at 2 CVs and they look roughly the same, but one of them is a local applicant and the other one is a foreigner, well, that's a really simple choice. I'll take the local one. So keep this in mind when you do your own job search. This is a barrier you'll have to overcome. But if you do apply outside of Portugal, but it's definitely something that can be done. So for me, I eventually got an offer from Ubisoft Sofia, and I was really working this whole time trying to improve my skills and to make more and more games and learn more about C++, maths, etc. And actually, I applied for a junior position, and I got finally a chance to make a test, and my test went really well, and they actually hired me as an intermediate, and I think that's a really good thing for my career in the end, because it allowed me to kind of skip a step forward and eventually become a lead earlier than what would normally be expected. Okay, while at Ubisoft Sofia, I worked on a few games. One of them was Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I joined right at the end, so I was doing some bug fixing. It was my first experience shipping a game of this dimension, and the whole experience at this point is just making tough decisions every day. So stuff like, okay, you have 30 issues assigned to you, but you only have time to fix 5 until the game releases. So what do you do? Oh, hey, you got a crash that happens only once out of 100 tries. Well, it's not a big deal, right? Well, the game, if the game sells 1 million copies, it will happen to 10,000 people, and some of them will put it on YouTube, and you see where it goes. And what if you found a fix for your bug, but it risks breaking something else? Are you sure you want to submit it? I mean, you're only jeopardizing a multi-million-dollar project. No pressure. So yeah, that was a really growing experience. Then I worked on Assassin's Creed Origins for 3 years. So this is completely different beast. I worked all the way from the early prototypes to final polish, and I ended up working on many different features. I worked on stuff like the torch that is still there today. Actually, it moved to Odyssey and to Valhalla. The pushable objects, the animal taming, and the giant snake boss. And after 3 years, I got promoted to lead. So the next project, which was the Curse of the Pharaohs, the second DLC for Assassin's Creed Origins, was my first project as a lead. And in this case, it was also a project where Sofia was the lead studio. So we were in charge of the whole development process, of the coordination of the development process. So this is super fun. It is kind of a different challenge being a lead studio on this. You need to make sure your game meets all the requirements from the first parties, from Microsoft, from Sony, and they have a lot of requirements. So this was a really nice experience. And finally, more recently, I moved to Singapore roughly 1 year ago. And here I'm working on Skull and Bones. Interesting thing is, hey, again, a new country, so having to adapt to the culture again. It's really a challenge again. It's really fun. Personally, I'm very attracted to the project, being a new IP and being a lead studio. So here I have it's my first such experience, and I am able to have really big chunks of the game that I'm in charge of. And I'm also leading a new team that didn't know me when I arrived, which was not the case in Sofia, right? This was a team I built myself. We were really close. Now I'm facing this challenge of hey, meeting new people from many different cultures actually, and try to build a team out of this. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you much about Skull and Bones. So I'm just going to leave you a message from our creative director. She posted last month or 2 months ago. We're proud of the work we've done, and we hope you will be too when you see more of Skull and Bones at our comeback next year. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to tell you something more next year. And that's it about me. Before I finish, I just want to leave you with one last message. You know, when I was trying to figure out how to get into video games, one of the most frustrating things that it was pretty complicated to find examples and information. So I hope events like this one can make that a bit clearer for you, and I'm very happy to play a part in that. So feel free to drop me a message. Here's my LinkedIn. Feel free to ask me anything. I'll try to get to you as soon as I can. And of course, ask me questions now, and I will try to answer to the best of my knowledge.
Hello everyone, this is Pedro Rodrigues from the production of the event. We have a few questions already from people in YouTube and Facebook as well, I think. No, just YouTube. So the first one comes from Pedro Soares, and he asks, how was the test for the Ubisoft junior position? Can you mention what kind of questions or challenges they gave you?
Yes. So the thing with the test in Sofia, and many companies actually do this, they give you the same test no matter what level you're applying to. So you're applying to junior, intermediate, senior, it's the same test, just the expectation is a bit different. So there were 2 tests. The first one was basically, hey, develop a game from the ground up with these specifications. It was basically a space fighter kind of game. And then you got extra points for stuff like, okay, if you don't use SDL, so if you go one layer of abstraction lower, and which I did, I went with only OpenGL. If it's in 3D, if you make your own physics system and if you make your own maths library. So this was a test where I had 2 weeks to do all this. Once I delivered this one, I went to do a more traditional test where it was just writing C++, maths, physics answers. And this one was really tough. Again, it was a 6-hour test in Sofia answering these questions. By the way, this is not with the test anymore. So we've revised the test since then, and the test that is going on now, I cannot talk about.
Uh,
I guess this depends on
I'm sorry,
where you
João.
are.
Let me just interrupt you there because I realized that the stream is not hearing me, so I'll repeat the question. Manuel Guimarães asked, how relevant is it to know how to speak the local language? Go ahead.
I guess this depends a bit on where you go. So I would expect a place like Paris, maybe. This makes it a bit more relevant. But in Bulgaria, it was totally okay. In fact, young people definitely speak the language, speak English, so you have no problem at all. And the good thing is that the people you meet in the studio, they're really, really friendly. So I felt from day one that I was really taken care of. I made friends very easily. People went with me to look for houses to rent. It was really fantastic. And yeah, here in Singapore, English is the official language, so it's not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Last question. Last question because we can't go through all of them, unfortunately, right now. But please come back and stay until the panel because we will be answering the remaining ones during the panel later on. The third question will be André Leitz, aka Root. He asks, did you apply while at Technico or after finishing the course? And he apologizes if you've already covered this.
No, I applied after I finished the course. I wanted to dedicate my time fully to it because, as I said, I wasn't just applying. I was also like doing my own things on the side. I was studying a lot actually while applying. So I decided to do it after. But honestly, I see it as something that you could do while because, as I said, it took me 4 months. So maybe it's something you can plan for.
All right. So for now, thank you so much for all the questions, and thank you, João, for the wonderful presentation. We will be right back with Diana Pingisha for our second presentation of the day, so don't go anywhere.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this talk. I was really surprised because I was like, people want to hear me talk? Like, really? So we're going to be talking about my experience working in the game industry here in Portugal. And first, who am I? I am a 31-year-old, and here you insert the screamer face like, I studied at IST. I am the mythical master's dropout in that I just gave up. You should not do that. I worked various jobs, but today we're going to be talking about high skills. Sometimes I like painting things, and I'm currently a full-time writer. And yes, that is me sitting on a writer throne with my bearded dragon Norberta. First of all, some intro. We did serious games, and I realized I forgot the IE, which is not serious games for serious people. They're just educational games. I did dialogue writing and mapping. I did Q&A testing, both automated and manual. I did demo recording, quick photoshopping. I brought Norbert to the office. As you can see, back then it was Norbert. She changed genders halfway. That's her on Edgar's feet, and that's me carrying her to the office. And it was always very fun to have her when we had meetings with our clients. They loved her. And I was essentially what you'd call the jack of all trades of the place, because I could always like cover whatever hole that needed to be covered. How did I get there? Meaning, when life gives you lemons, you do make lemonade, or you make lemon grenades that are used to burn life's house down, as Portal 2 says. I was in consulting, which for someone like me, it was basically hell. I got out of hell with burnout, and I do believe we need to talk a bit more about, mental health and how the corporate culture and burnout just completely wrecks your brain and makes you lose all the will to keep going. But a month later, a friend of mine, Edgar, he calls me, was like, oh, we need someone to write our dialogue. I was like, well, sure, why not? So I went to the interview. I did some, improvement of the dialogue as part of the interview. And they also needed someone with basic programming language, because I would need to do dialogue mapping and ensure that according to the path you followed, you got to a certain end. And sure, just let's go. So what was it like working at High Skills, you ask? It's pretty great. It's like hands down the best job I ever had. We used Jira for task assignments and management. We never really had crunch, usually only in the last month or so, sometimes less before a project deadline. There was unlimited coffee and water. We had team meetings at the beginning, middle, and end of each project. There were team dinners, which were always great. And they allowed me to work remotely, which is more okay now, but at the time, almost no one wanted you to work remotely. And in the mornings, I like to work from my bed. I'm like that sort of person. It takes me a while to get up. So this was great for me because I would have the same hours, and then I'll just go to the office during lunch hour, and I would still work 8 hours a day. So I'm going to talk about the projects I worked on, because I know you guys are curious, I'm hoping. So the two main projects I worked on was the Child Witness Simulator and the one about mediation training, because since they're serious games, they're going to be different than the games we play at home. And our Child Witness Simulator was probably my favorite project to work at. I wrote the dialogue from ground up, and it was done in conjunction with the Manchester Police. It simulated the interview of a child witness, taught police officers the basic skills required when you're interviewing a minor. And we did the dialogue mapping in Artisy, which is a great tool if you're doing more or less linear dialogue with just ifs and thens. And writing for it was great and also not great. I had to read real case transcripts, which were obviously censored in terms of names, with child witnesses or victims to assure authenticity. The two interviews gave me nightmares. You do not want to know why you're interviewing a child for a crime that either they're witness or they were a victim of. And then I had to create a new case from the documentation that I read. And all the dialogues, they were approved by the Manchester police, and they gave us feedback in that the first draft that I wrote, they were like, we don't talk like this. Like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll just put it more bluntly. So here you can see like some of the aspects of the game. You'd have to observe the environment and click on the objects to figure out what the child liked, because you needed to build rapport with both the child and the mother. And so it was through examining the objects. That's to teach police officers to examine their surroundings and try to form a friend relationship. You had the close examinations, and the kid, he was just playing his DS, and you had to gain his attention. And to gain his attention, you had to talk to him about the things he liked. And you also had the tracking of the emotional state of the child, whether they were happy, sad, or angry. You also had like a little virtual notebook with the information you gathered that may or may not have been correct according to the questions you asked. So here's like the main takeaway. The dialogue was split into topics, and each topic had different phrasings. So you could like choose, they were either bad, good, or neutral. Part of the interview was at the home of the witness and then at the police station for the statement. And it mostly, another thing we tried to teach was the difference between leading questions and open questions. You do not want leading questions such as, were you at school when this happened? You wanted to ask, where were you? And this was actually very interesting because Making a Murderer came out at the same time, and I could tell a lot of what the police officers were doing was wrong based on what I learned developing this game. You also had prompting, the report creation, and in the end you had to determine what happened, with whom, where, and what did the assailant look like. And this was the end of each, at the end of each phase, you got a little feedback on how it went, and you could restart the scene or keep going to the next one. The mediation training was more or less the same. It wasn't as heavy in terms of the subject, and it was done in conjunction with a mediation company, simulated a mediation case where, for instance, you had a McDonald's and then you decided to put sushi on the menu, and then the McDonald's reps would be like, no, this is against our brand. So you entered mediation to see what would happen with the franchise that you owned. Teaches basic mediation skills. Dialogue was again done in Odyssey. And the company did the first draft of the dialogue. It was not good. And when my job was correcting their dialogue to make it readable and adding the variables so we could have multiple endings and outcomes. So again, it was like while you teach a mediator, it was just basic skills. It was basically the same as reading their startup manual, but instead of reading the startup manual, you played through the game. And they taught like all the different phases in mediation, to always listen to the two sides, when to listen, when to intervene. Sometimes the best thing is to be quiet. And you had metrics for trust in mediation, trust in the process. And that's according to those you could bargain better or not, because that was an optimal bargaining case. But there were also other acceptable levels you could get to. And of course, multiple endings, because we wanted people to fail if they didn't know what they were doing. And this is a screenshot of the game. As you can see, it's all very high-end technology. But you can see the different topics in there that you chose, and each also had different phrasings, which led to different outcomes, obviously. And why did I quit? Brexit. Brexit came, our projects were EU funded, and with Brexit, the funding got pulled. The company had to change directions to a more AR approach, augmented reality. And they were like, well, yeah, if you want to stay, you have to code. And I was like, no, I'll go do something else. And then I did look for jobs, but have you looked at all the scandals in mainstream video game development? Yeah, no, did not want that. And what do I do now? Full-time writing. I quit and became full-time writing because I spoke with game dev writers at Ubisoft and BioWare, and they told me the best way to get into game writing, which was what I always wanted to do, was to get a book published. And I've been playing around with visual novels and RandPy, but I don't have time to finish the art because it's laborious. I finished like a whole story, but then, oh my God, I need sprites. I need backgrounds. Oh, so much work. And I'm on deadlines for books. And I also ghostwrite, which is when you write what someone else gives you an outline and then you just develop it and you get paid. But your name isn't on the book, which great. I don't want my name to be on those books. But also buy my book. It comes out December 1st, or don't buy it December 1st, or don't buy it. No one's making you, but I'd really appreciate it so my cat can get a new scratcher. And now I'm gonna open the room for questions. But also thank you. And here are my 3 little mini zoo elements that you thought you'd be safe from seeing, but you are not. You have to behold them.
All right. Thank you so much for your presentation. Adorable pets, by the way. I've personally met the bearded dragon, and he's a really cool guy. Now she, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so we actually have one question from the audience so far. Two questions. The first comes from Ad Necrias. I'm sorry if I'm misspelling that. And he asks, or she, sorry, not making any assumptions. What was your way out of burnout? Was it while you were in high skills? And was it a longer process?
It was when I was in high skills, I was great. It was during consulting. And it was really hard. My doctors thought I had stomach cancer because all I would do was throw up and cry and stay in bed. So the way out was quitting consulting, which made me really unhappy, and therapy, which it works. Too bad it's only for people with money. But yeah, so good therapy. And sometimes it's fine if you take a break for yourself and just do something you really enjoy.
Okay, thank you for the question. And we also have another one from Manel Guimarães again. He asks, what was the biggest challenge when designing a serious game? And he actually now has a follow-up question. Have you ever thought about writing for games? And do you have any thoughts or experiences?
So the biggest challenge in writing for serious games is that you're there to teach them a lesson. So it's basically a gamified classroom. It's a gamified class, and you need to make sure that you're teaching them the right way. And then you need to have also write for feedback for why they failed so they can learn. But also the police game, it was just the cases I had to read through. They were nightmare levels of horrible things happening to kids. And that is not easy to deal with. So our way to cope with that, we did not have a child victim. We had a child witness who witnessed the very bad crime. And we also had to, another big challenge was to keep like the police dialect, because they were very picky in that we don't talk like this. You need to add some kind of slang that was proper British slang. But the Manchester police helped us with that. And also I had to make the kids, so the kid needed to give you information. And I had to find a way to make the kids smarter than his age, than kids, not smarter, more eloquent than kids his age would usually be. So I just made him a huge Harry Potter fan. So he read a lot of books, and that's how we justified the kid being able to speak well. And what was the other question?
I can repeat it. So I think.
What was it? If I wanted to write for games?
Yes. Have you ever thought about writing for games, and do you have any thoughts or experiences?
All I ever wanted was to write for, video games. And I did apply to a lot of jobs. Problem is, like it was mentioned in the previous talk, when people apply to jobs and there's many local people and one foreigner, they're always going to choose the local. And there are a lot of people applying for writing positions because it's not a position that requires technical skills. So it was always, well, you're good, but we have local people you can hire. I would love to, but I don't know if it's meant to be. So I'll just settle for visual novels for myself when I have the time. And as for my thoughts, you have to remember that writing for video games, it's different than writing a book in that they're not as linear while being linear. Because video games give you choice, but also the illusion of choice. You're not really choosing anything that isn't explicitly been thought of by the people who designed it. Like a game can have multiple endings, and you choose between those. That's an illusion of choice because you cannot choose a fourth that's not been implemented. That's maybe what you want. But yeah, I would like to go for that eventually. Maybe now that I have a book out soon, I'll be able to get a foot in the door again.
All right. We also have another question. It's already been answered in chat, but let it be noted that Ricardo Oliveira asked about the species of your lizard.
Ah, that is a very important question. Norberta's a bearded dragon, which is a smallish reptile. And if you need a support animal that doesn't give you a lot of work, because she was very helpful in also recovering from burnout. If you want a chill animal that's very friendly and will just snuggle up to you for your body heat, bearded dragons are the way to go. They're very easy to keep.
And final question, it's actually coming from my production colleague here, Pedro Centeno. He asks, what are your favorite video game series narrative-wise?
Ooh, narrative-wise. Let me think. Planescape Torment is obviously number one choice because that's the game that made me want to write for video games because it's basically just text. I really enjoyed Bloodborne because the narrative is presented so differently and it's not usually my type of game, but it won me over because it had really cool gameplay and the way of storytelling was so out there and different that it hooked me. And then everything by Supergiant is a master class in narrative. Especially, I find that the way they did Transistor with just the one voice actor and the story being told through the transistor, and the only times Red would get to speak because she had no voice was through terminals. That was brilliant in itself. And Pyre was also incredibly interesting in that it was a mash of fantasy basketball with a visual novel, with the choices impacting, and I don't know if anyone played it, but you had rights, and if you won the rights, which was if you won the fantasy basketball game, you could choose one of your characters who played that match to be returned back to the good part of the world. And it was always such a struggle because I wanted my characters to be happy in the good part of the world, but I also did not want to lose them from my team because they were my star players. So they did that choice in such a different way, but it was so heartbreaking that it was wonderful and also not. It's like this duality of your heart being broken and also healed. And now Hades also does some very interesting things with narrative, I think. I think it's everything Diablo wished it was, because it has a lot of personality and the story is sold through how many times you die. So you need to die frequently to advance the story.
Okay, we have an additional question, but we're running out of time, so I ask Ad Necrius to please stand by and watch the panel because you'll have the opportunity to get an answer for this one once we're at the panel. And once again, thank you so much, Diana, for your presentation, and we'll see you in a bit.
Bye, everyone.
Hello, everyone. My name is André Soares. And first of all, I want to thank everyone on the organization of this event for inviting me. Let me just give me just a second. Okay, sorry. I was hearing myself on the stream. That's I had to fix that. So basically, I'm in quite a different position from the previous people who presented the other keynotes, as I terminated my master's. Basically, it's basically making 1 year now that I finished my master's, and we all know that the situation of the world changed a lot. So we'll be talking about that, but before that, I want to talk about a little before who was I before Technic. So basically, why did I want to program? Why did I want to be a programmer above everything? Why did I want to develop software, right? I've decided to become a programmer. Actually, it was like during my 6th grade in Portugal, middle school. And why? Because I instantly recognized the potential that the virtual environment and virtual world could bring to us as humans, not only for entertainment, but also in everything. As we see nowadays, everything is basically virtualized and is done on a computer, right? From finances to entertainment to socializing, and more now than ever, working, right? Be it whatever position you do, if you can do it remotely, especially in Portugal right now, you have to do it remotely. So it changed the whole paradigm of the world as we know it and as we know it now. But also, okay, because if I wanted just to follow programming, I just went for like a professional high school degree, right? Instead of like the normal ones in Portugal, and just start programming like that, right? So why did I also want to join the engineering side of things? Well, I'm a very technical person, and the one thing I really enjoy is solving problems. So engineering made all the sense in the world to pursue, right? Especially because in engineering degrees, you're not generally just tasked with solving problems in this case, in programming, not just like, oh, code this software to do this with these specifications, but especially on the bachelor, you also have math, you also have physics, you also have all these different type of things that you have to manage to solve. So that's what brought me to engineering. So if we follow that line of thinking, right? Why did I join Technic? Why go to Technic when you can join lots of different colleges, right? Well, I joined Technic most of all because I feel I have to push myself to the maximum at everything I do. I'm a really competitive person. And when people started talking like me in high school, wow, where do you want to go? Where do you want to join? Like for college, are you going to college? Which college? And normally there's like all those colleges coming to your high school with people giving you flyers. Oh, join this college, it's amazing and whatnot. But generally people actually fail to tell you why it's amazing or why it's so good, right? The thing it struck me the most was that the person presenting Technic that day, which was like my 10th grade or so, he said it's where the best people go. So it's basically sparked the fire in me that, okay, if I want to be the best and if you want to be good at what you do, you have not to compete with, competing is also healthy, but you have to learn from people that have the same aims as you do, right? Because people will push each other to become better and better. But well, with all of this, well, you could go into consulting, you could go do financial software, you could do lots of things. Like the world of programming is so huge. So why game development? Well, that's a funny story, because if we go back to why programming, how did I find out about programming and why did I enjoy it? If we go back to the sixth grade, right? Well, I discovered programming because I wanted to code a bot, right, for a game, basically. So I started delving with AutoIt, which is like a scripting tool. You can make like a program, script it, and whatnot. And then I delved into Java, just a little, nothing much, because the client for that game was actually written in Java, right? So I started like that, and after that was all passion. So I joined Technic in 2014, and I finished. I joined well, I didn't join Make. I didn't join the masters in informatics and computers. I actually joined LETI, which is telecommunications and informatics, right? But I knew soon enough that I wanted to go for Make, because like the masters has a lot more branches that you can choose from, right? And the ones that I wanted to go for, which was games, because I've always loved how games are such. It's a piece of software like none other, in my opinion, because it has so many things that you have to pay attention to, like in the whole scheme, of a game, right? But also distributed systems, because I just really enjoyed coding. I really enjoyed programming, right? I've always loved programming and getting my computer and my machines and did whatever it is to do things for me, right, that I wanted it to do. So I pursued those two specializations. Sorry. So I concluded the master with my thesis, which is mixed procedurally generated creatures. I'm going to self-plug a little here. Basically, it's a framework that is working right now in Unreal Engine 4 that tries to automate the generation of animations, basically by letting neural networks evolve and optimize themselves like real life. Basically, they compete with each other, and the best survive and keep reproducing themselves until we start converging into a solution. These solutions can be multiple different things. I have here 3 quick examples of that work. The first one is about learning how to rise up. The second one is a spider that tries to walk in a given direction. And the third one is a character that is trying to learn how to wave to somebody, right? Like you raise your hand and you say like, hello. Yeah, so those animations were all fully automatically generated based on certain tasks that I gave to the network, right? So after Technic ending, I defended my thesis in November of 2019, and we all know what happened at that time, right? So we started, well, the whole world had to change suddenly and really fast, and that brought lots of complicated things, especially to job hunting, right? Because if you leave college in November, and if you do like me, you take some time to like recompose yourself, because you just spent 5 years studying hard and working and whatnot, right? And then there's Christmas pauses and whatnot. And you also have to wait some time so that the bureaucracy on Technic is like done. You get your certificates, you get everything done, right? But you should start. I started hunting for jobs almost right away, knowing full well, like João said on the first interview, you're gonna get a lot of ghosting. You're gonna send 80, 90 applications for positions, and you're gonna get a couple answers at most. Like people don't even answer back, you know. So that's one topic that I wanted to touch, is that like the game development market is scarce, right? That it's not like consultancy where you get lots of positions, like, and there's always new positions opening up. The opportunities are scarce, but they are not impossible, right? They exist, both in Portugal, both outside of Portugal, and both. Like you can work from Portugal, which is what I've mainly been doing, to other countries, right? I think someone was asking on chat. I was keeping an eye on chat on the other presentations. Was like, if you should start like learning C++, C#, are those languages important? What did you do? So yeah, from my experience, they are pretty much must have. Sorry, if you want to work in the games industry, right? But more than that is having actual knowledge and experience with most of the mainstream engines that are used nowadays. We're talking Unreal Engine 4, we're talking Unity, and to a certain degree, we're also talking about Godot and Cocos 2D, which they are used, right? They won't ask you, well, if you're applying for a junior position, they might ask you if you have some experience, but they won't expect you to know a lot about the engine they use. They might not even use one of those. They might use like in-house engines. But it's a good thing to have. And if you have a little time that you can apply, and if you want to work in the industry, it's something I highly recommend is to, like John said, make games. Work with engines, make plugins, make modules that can be used, make, like, for example, in Unreal Engine 4, make components that can be used in other projects, for example, try to help people out, right? And always be on the look for a position. Not only in like big companies like AAA, which I would love to join like in the future, but for example, the two positions I'm going to be talking about that I've worked and I'm working in, actually came from job postings in Unreal forums, like Unreal Engine forums, because I wanted to work with Unreal Engine. And if the market in Portugal is already small for games, it's even smaller for if you want to use a certain tool, specific tool, right? Because you're restricting your search parameters basically. So I knew I had to look elsewhere, right? But the one thing you should never be afraid of is applying. You might demoralize yourself a little because you don't get answered back, or you get a no. But a no is always guaranteed. You know, it's like people say, like, you're always going to get a no if you don't send anything, if you don't apply. So if you apply, you might get ghosted, which will happen anyways, right? If you didn't apply, you might get a no. Well, you'll get a no anyways because you will not have an answer, or you might get a yes. Right? And you might be one of the lucky ones to get a yes, and to get the chance to prove yourself and get a job at game development. So my first adventure in game development, well, I'll call this more serious game development, like working, okay? Not just like my own projects, which I have a lot, like side projects, not like working for my thesis, not working like even before college. But my first adventure in game development was with Strange Matter Studios on a game called Fault. So Strange Matter Studios is a Canadian indie studio. They formed not long ago, and their aim was to make a remake of Paragon. Paragon, if people don't know, was a game released by Epic Games. It was a MOBA, which didn't have much success. Well, it did have partial success, but their marketing and their like monetary project for the game was really like you could get almost everything without paying a cent, like skins, heroes, everything. So there wasn't actually a plan for the game to make money per se, right? So it ended up dying, and they closed the game. They stopped publishing the game, and they released all the assets for free on Epic Game Store. Which you can still go and download them. So when I joined, the team consisted of 7 to 8 members. So it was a small team. So basically, I joined as a gameplay programmer, but in this project and the one I'm working in now, which is with an even smaller team, you find out that sometimes a gameplay programmer, if you join, I think that's part of the course, if you join a small team, you will be doing much more than gameplay programming. So basically, you might end up doing things that are not even gameplay programming related, right? You might be doing, which should not be like a term given to the position, because if you join as a gameplay programmer, but of course this also depends on how much, like it's the negotiations, of course, right? But you might end up doing lots of different things. For example, of course, I work remotely. I stayed in Portugal. I work remotely to Canada. And well, in that game, I joined at the end of the game development cycle. They needed more people to squash bugs, to implement some certain systems that they didn't have yet. but also they needed like someone to help them get the champions and heroes and abilities ready for shipping, right, for the release. Well, while I was there, right, I ended up detecting some other issues they had with their backends and so on. So I also ended up helping them with the backend. After that, I joined another team. Actually, I joined this team thanks to a contact I made while at Strange Matter Studios. I saw this position was open, and I knew the guy had worked with them basically before. So I asked him how was the project or not, and it's a really ambitious project. It's still in a really rough phase. It's really, really early. But like Valhalla is basically, I already said it's a smaller studio, but Valhalla is started as a Viking battle royale, basically, right? But since then, it has evolved into a much more ambitious project of becoming a Viking universe, not just battle royale, but for example, a single-player campaign, deathmatch, different game modes, and whatnot. So Valhalla was actually featured in this year's Europlay video game contest that was presented at Gamescom, and it also received a grant from Epic Games for development, which made it possible that well, Black Rose Arts and Valhalla could keep full control of the project, right? And they could keep their freedom of working, of the designers working as they wanted and whatnot. But as I said, it's still in pre-beta phase. It will be released on Steam. And it will use different Steam, it will be integrated with Steam and will use different features from Steam. These are some like pre-beta images and logos and whatnot of the game. But basically, it's very heavily inspired on Mordhau and games like that. All right, so basically from here, I'll be talking a little like side projects, and this I feel is really important. I cannot say how important I think this is, especially if you are applying for your first job in the games industry, is having side projects related like to games and whatnot. It can be games, it can be different things. It could be like an engine, because this is, as João said, and it was like his test like back in what, 6 years ago, I think it said. Companies nowadays it's still pretty much one of the tests they might ask you to do is like give you 2 weeks, develop an engine, develop a game using that engine, you know? And it's good that you have experience and you have knowledge of different things inside a game, because as I said at the start, a game is such a complicated piece of software, because if you think about it, an engine will bring networking, which is like one whole branch of like programming. It will bring computer graphics and performance of computer graphics, right? We are pushing more and more like the graphics, like we are pushing graphics so much that we started to develop finally hardware that allows to do ray tracing, for example, which like till 2-3 years ago was always something we knew we could do, but it was so completely expensive to actually do that, well, we didn't have a way to do it and make it play in real time, because games are real-time applications. You have to have that feeling of you're doing something and it's happening at the same time in the virtual world, right? So I feel having all of those projects is something you should do. You should make them, well, I'm not gonna say you should make them public right away, but you should make them presentable, because on my interviews, I actually didn't do that much in my interviews, because they add my personal page where I like link up my projects and the projects I've done that I find interesting to post with links to my code and whatnot. So basically, they already have a really good idea about how I work and what is my potential at that point, right? But if we think like I didn't get the position like right away. I also spent like 3 to 4 months hunting for positions because in Portugal it's really hard to get a spot in. Not because it's hard to get shows. You are coming from technical after all, and that still has some. How do I say it? It's an heavy push, like it helps you pass the door. But after that, you're basically alone. You have to prove why you deserve the position. So I applied for multiple consultancy companies in Portugal as well because, well, you start giving up because if you're not planning like moving abroad at that point in time, it's also kind of bad if you're not doing something after concluding your master's, right? You're basically unemployed. So be it like working in a consultancy, be it working like in game development, whatever it is, you should be doing something, right? So I ended up applying for normal consultancy jobs with like cloud systems and whatnot. I have like proposals on my hands after doing all the tests and interviews for those companies. And I actually and the pay was not bad for like our country standards. But like I said no, I put my feet down and I said I want to work in the games industry. So if it's not gonna cut here and I'm not up to move abroad right now, well, I'm gonna have to work something out, right? And that's something you should always keep in mind is that it's not easy at all, right? So some of my side projects that I'm developing right now and working right now, well, one of them is still on a named engine. Why is it a named, you ask? Well, I'm just going to say that I'm really bad at names and I spend like 2 to 3 hours in character creation if I start playing an RPG. So that's probably enough explanation to do why it's still named. Also because it's still in a really early phase because I want to plan this engine out like all the features I want to see in while working on the ones that I already know will be important, right? And this engine will probably be done from scratch, kind of like João said, like he did for his interview. But this is kind of like of a more ambitious project of mine. It's a big project that I want to keep working going forward. And it's also, if you think about it, it's probably a really good project if you want to show someone, maybe not for a gameplay position, but maybe for an engineering position, like if you want to develop, help developing the engine or some engine for a company. The second side project is actually a custom game framework that works inside Unreal Engine 4. I find out that like from working on different personal projects that might never see the light of day, as well as working in actually like in companies, that are some things that they are not, they exist, you can make them work, but I find I need like something that makes my job easier, basically. So that's where this custom framework comes in. It's still really rough as well, because when you're working 8 hours a day, like your day becomes really short. I want to be honest here. When you're in college is the best time to start developing those side projects, because you might say that you have so many tests and you have so many things to do, like in college. Oh, that teacher didn't have any consideration that we already have an exam on that day and put his exam or his project delivery on the day after that, right? Well, working is take that, and working can be sometimes 100 times worse, because management will fail, right? Like the project management deadlines, people failing to meet one deadline might block other deadlines and whatnot. And even if you do the best you can to not let that happen, it's almost guaranteed it will still happen. So you have to work around that. It's kind of like John said, you have to take like, I have 30 issues to fix and I have time to fix 5 or 6, right? How am I going to do that? How can I manage all of this before the game's releases or the patch comes out? So yeah, so basically those are my side projects. Those are some things that I think everyone should keep in mind, is that people will look for experience as well. Like your college degree is important, and I actually think it's really important. But what you do, how you do it, and how you can present it to the people looking to hire you. Because people looking to hire into a company, that's the thing with like bigger companies, and I think it's quite like the problem people find with consultancy, is that the company will look at you in terms of how much you can produce for them, right? What's your value for the company? And well, it's just because you have a college degree, it won't actually mean that much if you can't like back it up and if you don't have things to show. So that's why people generally say like in game development, you really need to have like, you don't have to have amazing, super genius portfolio, but you should have something that shows that you have the knowledge, you know, because the college degree will take you so far, and that's it. So basically, with that, I would like to conclude my presentation. I'm quite in a different position from other people because I've just like I've not even done like 1 full year working in the industry yet, and I joined in a quite precarious situation as well, because everyone knows that the world changed, and we had to adapt to it. So I will say that one of the main things you should have if you want to work in this industry is passion and patience, right? Because you might not get an opportunity right away. You might not get an opportunity like in the first year, second year, even third year. Your opportunity might come later in your life, right? And you might not even be doing anything in the games industry, but maybe if you kept your portfolio with your own things you do, like at home or in your free time, it will boost your chances. Like honestly, it will boost your chances to get a position eventually. With that, I would like to thank you everyone for listening to me talking about me basically, and my experience in the industry, and I'll be up to answer your questions now.
All right. Thank you so much, Andre, for your presentation. We actually have a few questions from the audience. The first one comes from Manuel Guimarães. He asks, what is the best way to make contacts and connections within the industry?
Okay, best way to make contacts and connections? And that's a really good question. I think it kind of differs for each person, honestly. Like not, you can try to follow the formula of like, for example, well, not now because of COVID, but before, going to like game jams and going out and do game jams or go to the dev meets, which people used to organize in Portugal like once a month or twice a month. Well, not anymore because COVID. But I think that what will speak the most is it's your coding, and mostly like I would say participating in forums and whatnot, because like if you help someone that's developing a game, you never know when that might pay back, you know? Like imagine someone is asking, oh, I'm building a game and I don't know how to do this. You go there and you give an answer and you help him and you give him a solution. And he comes back and says, oh, it works. You have to remember that, and I bet everyone does that and like did that in college before, is that when you don't know, you go to Stack Overflow. When you don't know, you go to Google. You go read documentation. You go read people who had similar problems and you find the solutions posted there. So your solution will show up for other people searching for that same problem, right? And if you keep contacts, right, you start building a network of people you know and what games they work in, what studios they work in, right? It can be the most random thing. It could be even like you add someone on LinkedIn or on Facebook or whatever, like social network, and you start talking to them. And like without being like too noisy or without being too much. Sometimes you'll just say, "Hi, how are you doing?" Like just meet people, you know, like it's not that different from meeting like your new colleagues at college, right? Because everyone in college comes from a different background and you're all put in the same class, and now it's like good luck. So those 3 first weeks might be awkward, but then at the end of those like 3 years or 5 years of your degree, you're almost best friends. If everyone survived, you're almost best friends at that point. So yeah, I'll say just like keep in touch. Don't forget your colleagues that are working right now with you in college. because someday they might be working at the AAA studio, you know? And they might remember, oh, wait, this guy used to work really well in college. Let's see what is it been up to. Or maybe like you can ask them, oh, is there any open positions, or going to be any open positions soon on the studio ads? And that might give you, it might give you the food you need to get to the door, right? So just like keep your contacts and keep socializing, and don't be afraid of approaching people on social networks. Like, don't be afraid to, for example, go on LinkedIn, search my name, add me, and contact me. I'll be grateful, and I'll be hopefully able to help you and talk with you, even if it's not like game related, even if it's something else, you know, like, oh, I want to apply for this company. It's not really game development, but I wonder, like, what do you think we should do? What should I do? How should I present myself? And slowly and surely, you'll start building a network of people. Like, maybe you won't call them friends. Like, it's not like your friends will go to the bar or go to the coffee to get a coffee, but it's people that surely will also be keep tracking of you, because it's not as much like getting them to know you, but putting yourself on their, well, let's say their radar, you know? It's more about that. You don't need to be noisy and be talking to them every day, of course. Okay, next question, I think.
Okay, thank you. That was actually very insightful. Thank you for your answer. And next up, we have Alexandre Shikaru asking, have you always worked remotely? Do you miss the ability to socialize with your colleagues?
Okay, so first, the answer to the first question is yes. I've always worked remotely, especially because, well, you take COVID, and at the time I left college, all the companies, even in Portugal, were transitioning from like in-person interviews to doing them online, right? So some of my interviews actually died out without me even knowing why. So it was basically, we appoint a meeting for an interview, like in person. COVID strikes, and then they were like, "Oh, we have to cancel that interview because we are switching to in-home office. Like, no, there's not gonna be anyone in office to do an interview in person. So we'll reschedule that." And I never got a reschedule email. And I've sent like, "Okay, when can you do that?" Never got an answer. Right? So I took matters into my own hands. And I decided that if I want to work in the industry, and if I want to work like with a specific tool in that industry, well, I'll have to go and search. And so it's how I found my positions, and that's how I've been working always remotely. So about the missing ability to socialize with my colleagues, I do, and I'm honestly a very like, I keep lots of things to myself. And I can stay home for like a lot of time without a problem. But there's one thing that's been growing and growing and growing is missing that ability. For example, you have in college, we just go out to the coffee machine and get a coffee with a colleague, or just talk about, oh, did you see the latest news of whatever? You know, of course you can do that like over Slack or over Discord or whatever, like a voice chat. But it's those simple little things sometimes make a difference in time. I'll even say in terms of synergy, because sometimes you pick up things, how people like to do things from like a coffee talk, that otherwise maybe you'd not have like spotted it, you know? But that's more like a psychological thing that you might pick up from other people. But yeah, I do miss the ability to socialize with my colleagues, especially like, I don't know. I think it's really different. I mean, it's like working from home requires a really, really big mental strength. You need to be able, for example, I still live with my parents. I'm 24. So my office is also my bedroom, where I am right now. So you have to be able to like change your chip from like, okay, this is like this is my bedroom to this is my workstation, you know? And that might be really hard for some people. Not everyone can do that, and not everyone is suited to do that. Like, I think it varies person by person. But yeah, I do miss that ability.
Okay, we have one last question. Sorry, we have one last question. It's threefold actually, comes from Pedro Centeno. Maybe I'll do one at a time.
It might be better, yeah.
Yeah, the first one is, given that you've had to fill so many holes, quote unquote, I'm guessing you've spent a lot of time reading about technology/fields you might not care too much about. Did you ever just get tired of that?
Well, that's the thing. I love every single branch. I don't think that there's not a branch that I don't enjoy in the programming world. If I would say one branch that I don't enjoy that much is like UI, like interfaces. I'm not really like, I can do them, but I was never like too much into designing them and whatnot. Apart from that, one of the facts that made me work in games is actually that a game is technically, well, it's technically, and I'm missing the word, but it's the combination of everything. You have networking, you have graphics, you have algorithms, you have like everything, almost everything that you can imagine in programming world, it's there. You can get it there. So I did read about all different technologies and fields. Some I didn't care that much, but I'm also a guy that loves to learn. So every chance I get to learn something new, I can say I get tired of that, because you're learning something new, you get to try it out, you get to test it out, you get to understand how it works and why it works like that. I could never get tired of that. But there's, of course, like, you'll get mentally tired after some time if you don't stop, right? If you don't change like your chip after some time. But no, I don't think I ever got tired of that. I think it's actually like, that falls back to engineering. That falls back to the ability to solve problems in different fields, even if it's not like your main one. Like, for example, you have calculus, you have to solve problems, abstract problems, which may, like, someone that just wants to code, maybe is like, why do I need this? What's the point of this? Like, you're like there, like, well, I don't want to study for this exam because it's like, it's pointless. I don't need this in the future. Well, maybe you do, you know? And maybe it's just not like having to learn calculus, it's the ability to get to solve the problem, even if you're not interested in it, because it's not all peach and roses. You won't be happy every day. Like, as a human being, you'll never be. That's something it's biology, right? It's not. Sometimes you'll wake up and you'll be down and not be feeling like it, you know. So at the end of the day, you will have to push through. So getting tired is like off learning. No, that's a straight no. Like, because you're not just reading. The point is not reading something. The point is to learn something. If you're reading just for reading, oh yeah, you might get tired. But if you're learning, and if you get tired of learning, well, that doesn't happen to me. So, yeah. Okay, next question.
So second part of the question was favorite Arc System Works game?
Calamity Trigger, Blaze Blue Calamity Trigger for PlayStation 3, which was actually my first Blaze Blue game I played, and will always hold special place in my heart from games related to Arc System Works. Next question then.
All right, third part of the same question, I guess, would be, and final one, since next we have to go to the panel. Right. What was or is your approach to tackling making an engine from scratch? Any tips?
Planning. First of all, planning. It might not be the best plan. It might not be, because you're going to iterate over and over and over and over. Like, iterating is one of the main things you'll do wherever you go. And well, you're going to iterate anyways while coding. But like a good base and structure will help you a long way when you get into developing. The problem with making an engine is that sometimes you might get like, I felt that in college with myself and with my colleagues. I felt that in working, you go through hype phases. Right? It's a psychological thing. You go through hype phases. Generally, when you start a project, you are really hyped. You are like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do so many things, right? And you start tackling them down, right? Start working really hard, and then the hype starts dying down, and the project starts slowing, right? Also because you start getting to things that are more complicated to do, right? So you take more time to do something, so you don't see progress as much. So your hype keeps dying down, and on and on and on and on. And I think the main thing that, at least to me, helps me a lot is when I plan things with structure, like with good like coding approaches and whatnot. Like, you might lose a little more time. I'm not saying just keep it to the paper. No, you have to get something working, of course. But getting that initial base written down, thought out, and like you have something you can follow and keep tracking your progress. You're just not going like with the wave of the thing. You're like, okay, I've done this today. Nice. Okay, tomorrow let's do a little more of something, you know? And slowly you progress through that plan. And at least to me, it helps me not losing my focus, my hype, because I see progress every day on that project. Like, even if it's just like a tiny bit of progress, if I can tackle down something on that planning list, it's a boost of motivation, right? So since an engine is such a big project, is such a complicated mess of things to put together, I feel that planning is indeed like my best tip. The second tip is, I know people want to get something working. For example, if you're doing a game engine or a game client or anything, you're going to want to see something on your screen almost right away, right? And that's pretty funny, because that goes back into Vulkan with taking like 1,000 lines of code to get one triangle showing. And then you go to other graphics libraries, for example, and you get them showing like 100 lines, 200 lines. But don't rush mindlessly, okay? People have told me this advice, and I really took it to heart, because I think it's kind of true. And João also said quite similar things to this. You're not going to get your thing right to be shipped or right to be used right away. That's normal. You'll iterate it. The good thing is when you have to come back and iterate it. So that's my second tip. Right? Get something done, but keep in mind that you might have to come back and fix that later. Don't forget. Don't just be, oh, it works. Okay, put it on the corner. No, keep in mind that it works. It might be retouched in the future. But I never lose motivation. And I guess that's it.
All right, Andre, thank you so much. So we are going to take a short break, and we will come back afterwards with the panel joined by Professor Pedro Santos and the 3 speakers. So see you all in a bit. Don't go anywhere.
All right.
Okay. Já fiz a...
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the second part of our alumni meeting. We have here the panel with Diana, João, and André, and I thank you, the three of you, for being here with us and sharing your experience. You gave very interesting talks earlier on, and I would like to discuss now with you some general subjects or more specific, depending a little bit on the questions also that the public has asked. And you can, now for the public, you can still ask new questions, and we'll try to give them to the panel after the questions which are already arrived. So I would start. So the idea is that we, all of you, discuss a little bit these 3 or 4 teams that I'm going to put. I will just like to know, for starting, what are games for you? So there was a few years ago, maybe when you were students, that this discussion of games as art, games are not art, and so on. So what are games for you? What makes them better, in some sense, as a medium at something? So please develop a little bit on this. So maybe we start with Diana, and then we rotate.
Games are therapy for me. In that when I'm playing a video game and I'm really enjoying it, I don't think about anything else. I don't think about any problems I might have. I just relax and enjoy the experience. And I think the reason why, for me, they're a better medium is that it's involvement. It's that you, since you're the player and you affect the game world, you feel like you're more involved in, say, when you're watching a movie and it's a more passive experience, or when you're reading a book and it's also a more passive experience. It's so much better. I don't even know how to elaborate, but yeah, it's my own form of therapy, in that when I'm having like a problem with anxiety or something, I find the video game I really love and I spend like hours on end on it. It was Hades recently.
Okay, so I have to try that one. So André, can you tell us?
Well, for me, they're 100% art. I see games as people wanting to tell a story through a medium that is not, it's entertainment, but it's much more interactive. We have to interact with it to get a result. As Diana was saying, it's not a passive experience. You're not sitting there looking at the screen and like, what do I do now? Well, some games are becoming that. If we look like at Kojima games and Death Stranding and whatnot, people still make fun and jokes about that. But generally, it's an interactive experience. And as Diana said, you get like that sensation of freedom of choice. Without you, the story won't really progress. You can stay there looking at the screen for however long you want. The character is not going to move and nothing will happen. So yeah, for me, I consider them art and I consider them like stories mainly.
Okay, thank you. João?
Yeah, I have a similar answer as what Diana said as well. Like I really enjoy just sitting back, relaxing, playing my video game, and that reflects on what kind of video games I pick. I often pick single player games that I can just enjoy on my own. There's no stress from anything. I think yeah, Bloodborne was one of the last few that I was like, all right, this is awesome. But
yeah,
I have a Bloodborne keychain.
Yeah, this kind of games I find myself playing less and less because I'm looking into that experience of just being drawn into a world, being there, disappearing from the current one. And I think, yeah, there's no way something like a book or a movie can have the same impact as a video game, because you're doing the action yourself. The kind of questions that pop up in your mind are it's a higher level, and I really enjoy that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the three of you during your talks, you touched a lot about your experience at IST. I would like you to be a little bit concrete in something. So what, I will ask you two questions. One is, what did you take, in like 2 or 3 words, what did you take out of IST in general? So having the degree at IST. And the second part of the question would be, what did you take out of the game specialization if you took the courses, so that you found particularly relevant for your life after IST? So maybe starting now with André.
All right. So, well, from IST, I think I took mainly 2 things. Number 1, mental fortitude. I think technique shaped my mentality to become not just about a person, but a person that can, when we have those huge projects to do and like those relatively short deadlines, you must be able to pump out a lot of things that, like, in a really short frame of time. And that we learned that very well at Technic. And sometimes people will complain about the teachers, but at the end of the degree, I just ended thinking, like, maybe this is what was expected. Maybe this is what's the plan of the degree. Is not like they're not trying to throw us like out the window with work. They're trying to give us like the mental fortitude to be able to change between subjects really fast. And about the game specialization, I would say that methodology of like with the MDJ course, where I think it gives a really, it's not the full experience, but it gives a really good window to what you can expect. Well, of course, you won't be working with your best friends or something if you join the company. Maybe you can open an indie studio, who knows? Maybe you have a really good idea. And for me, at least, like the computer graphics course, was what really opened my mind. And I think it's something that everyone should do if they do the game specialization. Because when this is experience, interviewers always said like, well, you did an OpenGL engine all by yourself or stuff like that, because they recognize that it's not that easy to do something that complicated, you know? So you get some hints, you get some really good knowledge from especially those two courses, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. João, do you want to say something about this?
Yeah, I think I touched this topic actually on my presentation, so I'll just bring it back quickly. For me, it was 2 things. It was learning how to learn. It wasn't really only about okay, whatever the course gives you, you just spit it out in an exam. It never felt like that. It was the whole process of doing that. I remember the second year when we were starting to learn C. No, this was in the first year, the second semester. We're starting to learn C, and the lessons are just explaining C, and nobody introduced us to what how do you even compile that? How do you even run that in Linux? We had to figure that out on our own, and I was really frustrated back then. But again, later I appreciate it, because yeah, this is what happens in real life. This is it. People are not there hand-holding you. It's, hey, here's this super old documentation, figure it out. And the second one is dealing with tight deadlines that André was also mentioning. It's, yeah, this is also what happens in real life. Unfortunately, I couldn't do the game specialization. It wasn't available to me. But I did take some courses, and yeah, the value is in providing those bases. It gave me stuff to start. Like okay, I am exposed to these topics. I know where to look at, and if I want to get a deeper knowledge of them, I know where to start. And actually, during my application to Ubisoft, the first one, what I did was to get my old notes and to study from them. And this did make a big difference. All the questions about maths, all the questions about OpenGL, this showed up.
Okay, thank you very much. Diana?
Okay, so for me, number 1 thing was persistence. in that it's like people will like mock you all the times if you fail a subject or something, but persist. Don't pay attention to what other people tell you. That's another thing I had to learn, because a lot of people would say I will never have a good enough level of English to write in English, which, sorry, I don't know if I can say, but it's bullcrap, because I have a book out. I think my English is fine. And also, it's just, they did well in technical. Obviously, I did not do well in that environment. I learned how to like desenrascar, you make do. I learned how to make do. So like when I have questions, I ask Professor Google nowadays. I would not have learned that without technical, probably. I don't know. And to seek out, I only ask questions like to other people if I absolutely cannot figure it out myself. But I do think that my time in technical would have been easier if people were not so, how do I put this? It's not exactly demanding, because that pace, some of us have disabilities that they're not easy to deal with when you're in that environment. And what I learned from the video game course, which I didn't finish, but I did do a lot of the subjects, and I really enjoyed the DDJ, the design and development of video games. And I really enjoyed the design methodologies and learning how to identify the different design elements that make a video game really work. So I still find myself when I play a video game going through all the choices the developers made. I was like, oh my God, this is like genius. And I go back to Ocarina of Time, which is one of my favorites ever. And I go and like, this is just perfect. They knew exactly what they were doing in every stage of this game. Like, oh my God. So yeah, it actually improved my enjoyment of video games.
Okay, thank you. So this one came also from the audience. It's related still to IST, but in a different way. So what would you like to have known when you were a student at IST? So would you do something different now? So maybe starting with João now.
Yeah, I made a big mistake actually. I didn't realize how much I was focusing more on I was focusing more on the result of making video games instead of the process. And this meant that I was using technologies that were actually not relevant to what I wanted to do. So I learned a lot of C# and a lot of Unity. And then I was looking for a job in AAA game development, this is not matching at all. So this was a big struggle when I was looking for that first job, because people looked at my projects and they were all in C# and they were like, nope, next one. So if I could go back now, I would have focused more on using the technologies that are relevant to what I would have wanted to apply after, and focus less on the results, on having the shiny game at the end. It's more important to really learn the piece of tech that you're gonna eventually use.
Okay, thank you. Diana?
What was it again? What do I wish someone had told me?
Yes.
And I just laughed internally. I wish I'd done like the main course, not the licenciatura. I wish I'd done it in Nova and then just gone to technical for the masters. I wish that to this day. And I wish people had told me that most people around me were gonna be assholes. Yeah. And that I'm just gonna tell you, I know it's different now. There are more girls in the course. There were 14 of us, and it was not good for me whenever I went to a party to be surrounded by guys trying to make moves on me, which I did not want. But I was nice to people, and because I was nice, people thought I was flirting. I was like, no. So yeah, girls, push back. Not let them do that to you. It was really very anxiety inducing. I wish someone had told me that.
Okay, thank you. Andre?
I'm not sure if I will change like anything in terms of my progress as like On the technical side of things, I think that most of the degrees were well-rounded. And there were some degrees that, like some courses, sorry, that, as João said, it's like you're thrown into the middle of a forest and good luck, you have a knife. And good luck, you gotta do whatever you need to do to finish this project. These are the specifications, good luck. But now looking forward, like, that makes sense, of course. But at the time, I was like really like pouting, like, oh, why do I have to do this like this? What's the point? Why can't I use that technology? Why not? Why not? And so on. But it's mainly, as João said, I think that I tried. I think we have kind of the same problem. Like, he said, like, you focus on the end product. I tried to keep like a mix of like, okay, we have this idea of an end product, but we have to learn what we're doing. That's what's going to count. So we might have like ended up sometimes, like, our projects, our groups, putting ourselves at a disadvantage, because, for example, for most of the projects we decide to use Unreal instead of Unity, which generally is easier to use and get something prototyped and working. And maybe our grades at that point like weren't that good, and we always, I think that's a thing that most of the students think, oh, my average grade, I have to keep my average grade up, whatnot. Focus on learning. That's
yeah, can I add to that? Your grades don't really matter.
Yeah, that's also a thing.
Your grades don't really matter. Don't kill yourself trying to get like an 18 or a 20 or whatever. Just learn from the experience. Yeah. Your grade is not relevant in job interviews.
Don't just learn, like, for example, if you're doing an engine in OpenGL, don't just learn OpenGL. Don't just learn C++. Understand what you're doing. Understand what's behind the math. Understand what's behind, like, what's happening, even like at that GPU level, at the hardware level. Like, you, at the end of the day, you're just multiplying matrices like 1 billion times per second, right? And how do we go from that into what the user sees on the screen, and to the point of developing a game, right? So it's all of those little things that you pick up during your whole bachelor and your masters. It's not the point, you're not there to learn Unreal Engine, you're not there to learn C++, you're not there to learn anything like that. You're there to learn the concepts, learn them, master them, because if you master them, you'll have no problem wherever you go to just do everything, right? And you'll be wanted. People will, if you apply and you're like, I know these concepts, I master these concepts, no one's going to turn you down, because that's exactly what they're looking for. Because they never know if right now they have an IP that they're working with a certain tool or a certain engine. That might change in the future. Look at Square Enix. Square Enix went like to Unreal Engine 4 out of nowhere. They're like, oh, now we're partnered with Epic Games, and we're building like our own custom version of Unreal. So now we change from searching people who know that into people who use more Unreal, right? So, but if you know the concepts, you can go into any engine, you can go into anything. So don't focus on your end product. For example, for Mojo, for like even for MDJ and whatnot, focus on learning what the teacher are trying to get to you. Those concepts, like those little things, like understanding like the gameplay, feedback loops. I remember Sir Pedro Sanch, like on our like weekly checkups of our project, like hammering us down with, there's stuff missing in the loop. There's stuff, why is this loop like this and whatnot. Understand those concepts, right? And understand all the things that go into making a project good. Don't focus on making the project good itself, because if you understand why it's going to be good, you'll make it good. If you don't, and it gets good, it's probably luck. I'm going to be straightforward here, it might be luck. Then you go and try to do a second project and it's crap. It's not like, it happened a lot that, well, you have a really good game and the sequel, it managed to destroy the whole like IP name. Like no one wants to touch that anymore because the second game was so bad and made so little sense that people will say, well, it must have been a fluke, because how did you get something so good and turn it into something so bad? And learn the concepts. It's what I can say, that maybe I didn't do as much as I should have. I think I could have done that even more than I did, basically.
That reminds me of when Warren Spector came, like that year, and in his talk he said, "I make great first games, but crappy sequels."
Yes. So I think one of the sometimes I feel when I'm teaching some classes that so if a project does not go well for a group, they are very sad because they did not attain that grade, that objective they had of that idea they had. But I'm satisfied because I think they learned, and sometimes you learn more from failure than from success. And so I think I did my job in the sense, okay, you learn, you maybe don't get this very good grade you wanted, but you gain something more valuable than the grade, which is the experience that you'll take to the rest of your life. And I think that
you're actually failing in a safe environment there, which is a really important place to fail.
Yeah, it's quite kind of almost the point of doing that there. It's like you're supposed to fail until you get it right. You're supposed to fail because once you get it right, you're gonna take that for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Just wanted to add that. Sorry, Joe.
Okay. So another question that came from the audience. This is more for the coders. It is, what is more important when writing code? So we already talked, they also asked about the languages, and I think that was answered already, that you should actually focus on the specific language that you want to work with. And that may change, so you must also understand the principles. But when you are actually coding nowadays, because there is always this thing, you should code with commentaries, and you should code like that, and should go like that. What now in the industry? What is important when coding? Maybe João first.
So I think you asked that question to 10 programmers, and you'll get 10 different answers. So I'll tell you the approach I take now, which for me, I find gives the best results. I try to not care too much about the quality the first time I'm writing something. So I have a problem to solve. My first goal is to get something working. And in video games, I find that is really, really important. So often you get something working and you find out, well, this is not fun, so we need to scrap it. And if you spend 2 weeks developing something that you're going to throw away, but it has the best code you can imagine, you just wasted everyone's time, not just yours. So what I try to do is, okay, bare bones, just enough to don't go crazy there, just enough to follow my own thought. And then once I have that, I show it to people, we play, we try different things. And as long as it's fast to iterate, that's totally fine. You don't need good quality work at this point. You need good quality work at the point when you say, okay, this is a feature we want. This is the next iteration of this feature. So how do we go to the next iteration from where we are? And you start looking at your code and you're saying, okay, this piece, this will probably change a lot. I want to abstract this into this way and that way. And that is the moment when you're actually able to answer that question. It's not before you start writing. So all that time you spend thinking about that is absolutely wasted. So yeah, I'm a big fan of just iterating as you go, and just be realistic with yourself, right? So if you develop like this, then you do need to save some time to go back and rewrite pieces of it. But in my experience, if you do that in the future, you go back and you do it better because you have much more knowledge of what you're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Andre?
What I was going to say is actually really, really similar to what João just said. Like if you are prototyping and trying to find if a feature will be fun and it's going to stay in the game or not, you shouldn't be losing a lot of time there. get it working, get it running. As long as it doesn't run at like 10 FPS and it's like the worst thing ever run like in a computer, you'll be fine, right? The important thing is to know where you need to go back and where you need to fix stuff later. Like that's the most key thing I think I've learned like almost instantly. It's like you need to it's not even like remember, but it's like, okay, I done this way, right? Then you change shape a little, but it keeps on the back of your head like, maybe I should have done that way. And you keep piling those thoughts until you go back and you're like, okay, let me read this. Oh yeah, I can abstract this. I can refactor that. I can put this there. I can abstract this in this certain way. It's going to be reused or not, and so on. Jean?
Yeah, sorry, don't know how to interrupt. We actually keep track of that at Ubisoft. So whenever we do develop something like that, we make sure to track this in Jira, which is the issue tracker we use, to say, all right, we submitted this, we did this prototype, but we want to go back and redo this part. So we know always how far are we from the actual version and not from that initial version, which is not good enough to ship.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you. Now a question a little bit more to Diana. It's also from the audience. What's your view on choose your own adventure style books? Do you link up book writing to game writing, or do you think they are a different kind of beast?
I think you could easily turn those choose your own type adventure games into a visual novel. So I think they do tie directly into game writing in that aspect, because with visual novels, it's also basically the same. You make a choice, it takes you this certain path, and in those games, it takes you to another page and you keep on. So yeah, I think if you want to study game writing, that would probably be a good starting point just to see choices and impact.
Okay, thank you. So now again, a generic question. Maybe I have still one last question, but I will do this one first. I don't know. I think we were supposed to end a little bit before 8, right? So just
we all went over time.
Yeah. So here about working. About applying to abroad, so for the people who have experience there. So there is a question here from João Patricio. Say, when applying to jobs abroad, do you have any tips to overcome the foreigner barrier you mentioned?
Well, you mean overcoming the foreign barrier. You're always going to be a foreigner. The best thing you can do, in my opinion, is have good English, which is going to be the main language you're probably going to be speaking. Other than that, there's nothing much you can do.
So there, yes, I think I agree that speaking English, a good English, is I think one of the important things. But in order to get hired, so is there any suggestion that you have?
Honestly, okay, English is obviously the number one. The number two is think what can you offer, like yourself, be it a personal trait, be it a technical trait, be it whatever. What can you offer that other people, even in your country, like even if you're applying locally, because other people will also apply locally if you apply for positions in Portugal. What can you offer and how can you sell that to whoever is interviewing you, right? And how can you, it's basically the heart of selling yourself, right? It's like, what can I offer that other people cannot offer? What can I tell you, like at the same point as me in my age, if someone my age locally to you is applying for this position, what can I offer that he cannot offer?
Right? But that is not as much as a foreigner thing as in a thing you do in job applications.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Like even locally, even locally. Of course, you're going to always have that little barrier. Like it's just easier for us, even for tax purposes or whatever, for the company to hire someone locally. Maybe they'll get some like financial compensation from the government there. Like, oh, you are hiring locally, so we're going to do some tax reductions because you hire people locally and whatnot. So basically, you have to show that you can produce more value and opportunity for the company than other people. It's basically down to that, but that's everywhere. You're gonna have that problem everywhere.
Like, you can always be sure to just be good.
Yeah, you have to be good. You have to be the best. Yeah, that's the only like thing you can do, because even in Lisbon, if you apply for a position in Lisbon, you have like what, 20, 30 technological institutions, like you have Nova, you have like you have so many universities and colleges just in Lisbon, that applying for a position in Lisbon is also hard. Don't think just because you're local or just because you're from technical, you're gonna have more chance. It's gonna help you a little, but at the end of the day, you still have to prove yourself. So be the best. There's no other choice.
Yeah, I think roughly the same as what Diana and Andres said. I've hired many foreigners, like, okay, so people not from Bulgaria while I was in Bulgaria, and the classic mistake is if you just give me a CV that looks like everyone else's, sorry, this is just not gonna cut it. So if you're a foreigner, yeah, you'll have to show something on top. Did you work on this project? Did you publish something? Did you release this game? And when we do the interview, if I talk to you about this project, what can you tell me about it? Because if you tell me something, oh yeah, it was this project about something, but you're not able to explain to me what you've done, what was your thinking process, then this is not valuable. So as long as you keep doing stuff that is valuable, and these days you can do so many things that are valuable, this is gonna have weight in the decision.
Mm-hmm. And there was another question here about the hobbies. So do hobbies affect your hiring chance? What, in your experience?
100%. Absolutely, because I'm not looking for some guy to come and to just write code all day. I'm looking for someone that fits the culture. I'm looking for someone that can communicate well with the team members, with people from other teams. And the worst thing you can have in this environment is someone that cannot do that and that you cannot relate to. This is, it's dragging the team down. So I absolutely look at hobbies. I look at everything I can get from the interview, the personality, the kind of interactions I can get from this person.
And I think that's something technical doesn't really prepare you for. It doesn't really prepare you for. It doesn't really teach you soft skills that you're going to need. Yeah, and to also show some empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got most of my jobs because of my hobbies. I got so good at my hobbies that people just hired me for art now. Randomly, I get art commissions.
Yeah. I don't think any company wants to hire like a soulless vessel that is just there to eat keys on the keyboards and show up like, hello, does the 8 hours of work, goodbye. Like they have to fit the culture, they have to fit like team, they have to communicate with the team. Like it's synergy, it's team synergy at the end of the day. Like if the team cannot mesh, it's really hard to get like good things out of them. You should. It's like John probably has a lot of experience in that sense. He's like a lead, but like I played soccer, and something that's always stuck to me is that a team has to be bigger than the sum of each component, right? The sum of the parts has to be way bigger than the sum of each component, because you might have the best team in the world or best coders in the world. If they do not mesh, they don't produce more than they are capable individually as a team. It doesn't make sense to add them to the team. Yeah. You could just hire someone that boosts the team instead of him.
Okay, so let's go to the last two questions. They are both from, no, one of them is from Manuel Guimarães. What do you think about the new generation of consoles, or do you not care at all?
I don't care. Personally, like, sure, it's fine that they're coming out. I'm not going to buy a PS5 until like 2 to 3 years when the price drops and the Slim is out. And I still have so many games to play on the PlayStation 4 and the Switch and the PC that I'm just like, it's fine, I can wait.
And Andre?
I look at it from a technical standpoint. I'm really hyped from a technical standpoint, I'm really hyped because it's probably the first generation almost ever where the hardware on consoles is gonna be, well, not as powerful, but really close, especially like on the CPU side of things, to, well, newest generations of hardware on the desktop, on the PC. And I think, especially for AAA games, that's gonna push like the minimum, because generally companies will develop a game for like the minimum specs that they're targeting. Like they'll up some settings probably, but you always have like, the limitation is always the lowest hardware you want to run on. So I'm expecting really good things for the future of game development with those new machines.
I wish
Yeah,
I
I
could
think
partake in your optimism. But all the layoffs and everything that happens in game development, because when you follow it, you know that it's not all rose-colored.
Of
Not
course,
roses.
of course
It's
not.
not roses.
But that's kind of everywhere. Like, the thing is, like, game development and the game industry is so big right now. There's so much money in it. Like, there's so much money being put into it and generating money that.
Yes, but who benefits? Is it the developers who work the games you love, or is it the shareholders of the company?
That's the thing. But that's just as Steve Jobs said, like, a good company, like you want a good company which makes good products, put a product person in charge of it. You want a company who has a monopoly and makes money, put someone in marketing and management there and remove the product people. You can just do the same thing every year and sell it. So why do you need new product people? You don't, right? But I'm still optimistic because, like, I think most of the cases we do heard about, right? There's always all the other ones we don't hear and that go well, you know? So it's kind of a mix, I'll say. But yeah, there's some issues. There's some issues in the game industry, especially, well, let's say in America. But there's issues everywhere there. So that's, well.
Yeah, go on, Joe. You work at a AAA.
Yeah.
You work at a AAA place.
So I think there's as someone that works in such a AAA company, I think this doesn't go out so well. But you have to realize that it's really sad for someone that is there and hears these stories. So I had a fantastic experience all my career at Ubisoft. I made really good friends. I had a really good time, and hearing these stories makes me really sad because they're people that have gone to the same company and didn't have the same experiences as I did. And that's a real issue. That's something we are taking really seriously, you know, and it's not just us, pretty much in any company talked about in these terms. And yeah, I personally, what I try to do is just I try to think about what I can do better as a person. And I try to convey that message to the team as well. You know, try to not minimize what's happening and to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Diana came and bummed everyone out.
And regarding the new generation of consoles, because it went a little bit off topic.
For me, it's exciting. You know, I think every time there's some kind of new technology available, it's you know, it's new possibilities literally, and you can see some cool stuff already from the stuff that is coming out. All these fast loading times, I think, are something I definitely want to try and do some cool stuff with.
Okay, so I was putting on the last question, but there is here a request for and not still unanswered questions from Ricardo. Why some games are delayed several years?
I get
So
the
we
feeling
all
this
know
one is for me.
games are delayed many years. But, can you give some light on why can a game be delayed like 2 to 3 years since the initial plan?
Yeah, it's not that hard. I mean, it's the same with any personal project you have. You're working on something and you take a hard look at it and you realize, you know what, I think this can be better. And then you have to make a very hard decision. Do you release it as it is, or do you go and just spend more time to make it in that new shiny new idea that you thought about? And obviously, big video games in our industry, yeah, they are really big. It's taking really long time to develop a game from ground up, even if everything goes well. That's several years. So if there are some bad turns in the process, naturally the delay is again several years. That's just the reality of current day game development.
If we learned anything from Mass Effect Andromeda, it's that delays are preferable to
Yeah,
releasing an incomplete game.
I was gonna touch that you
That's
just
a
said
very-
because be thankful that the company is up to not making money from a game for 2 more years so that it releases in a good state instead of pushing whatever it's done into your throat and asking you to pay for it to recoup the money. Be thankful for that. Don't be. I know it sucks that you can play the game, but be thankful that the company and the devs are putting the time and the money that it requires to keep that project running into making it better. Because if it was up to other people, maybe they will just, well, there it is, it's whatever, take it, buy it, give us money, you know.
And this narrative is, I'm sorry, it's really obvious if you think about it for 2 seconds. There's nobody that wants the game to be out more than the developers. Nobody wants to work on games that don't release, right? So
Yeah, and it sucks that we have to wait, but look at it this way. There are so many good games you have not played that you now have time to, because you have another, I don't know, another year, another month, whatever it takes for the game you're really waiting for to release. And when it releases, you will be thankful that they spent the extra time fixing bugs or doing improvements. Because nothing sucks more than an unfinished game full of bugs.
I also prefer a game that comes out late, but comes out.
We were all glad when The Witcher 3 got delayed multiple times, and when it released, it was pretty much clean.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so one last question from Pedro Soares. What do you see yourselves doing in 10 years from now?
Retired in the mountain, living in the mountain, away from all problems, and with a clean head and none of the mental struggles that, well, will start working during an epidemic or pandemic or whatever you want to call it. Virus is ravaging whole countries. No, but not joking. Like, I would love to join the AAA industry personally. My aim has always been to be there. It's maybe not just for like the projects and IPs that are extremely cool, right? But honestly, to learn from the best. You know, like I think you can meet great people there that know a lot about game development, about development in general, you know, and other stuff. Like I think it's probably a unique experience. Jerome probably knows that very well. But I would like to try that, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who else?
That's actually why I joined the AAA industry. Exactly the same reason. Just okay, I want to see how these people make these really big video games. And yes, it's true what you say, Andrea. You meet people that are crazy talented. You cannot imagine. It's a bit overwhelming. As for what I would like to do 10 years from now, I'm not sure. I would. I think the dream is to have something that is a bit more personal to me. I would like to make some video game that says something maybe about me. Hopefully, it's a bit successful, but not. That's not the necessarily. So we'll see if I get there.
Okay, thank you. And Diana?
Ideally, I will also be living in the middle of nowhere, like a hermit, like the true hermit that I am, with my army of rescue farm animals and cats and lizards and parrots and whatever, as I write books, and hopefully as I write, visual novels. Because people talk about wanting to join the AAA industry. I would rather just go indie, because I think there's a lot of great work and lots of really talented people working indie games. I mean, Supergiant, which I've mentioned, Pirate and Transistor and all that, they're a small studio and they make such amazing work. And I think like learning from Greg Kazavin would be the greatest thing, because he's such a talented video game writer. And yeah, so writing books and video games. Sorry, my cat had to come say hello. She was just parading around. Come on, Sushi. Come on, say bye.
Okay, so we are already over our time. I would like to thank again Diana, Andrea, and João for joining us in this session. I also like to thank the audience for being here with us, and Professor Rui Prada for being the host of this event, and Games Lab for the organization, and in particular to Pedro Rodrigues and Pedro Centeno, that were the people who were organizing specifically this event. So I hope to see you on next Games Lab event, everybody. And so see you later. Thank you very much.
Hopefully COVID-free, right?
Yeah, COVID-free.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.